The message appeared on screens across Earth for only 9 seconds. 9 seconds before the authorities scrambled to erase it. Yet, in that short time, millions of people saw the same words flashing across their devices. Curious if I'm not wearing anything underneath? It was not what most people expected. For a moment, confusion spread. Then fear. Then curiosity. Who had sent it? What did it mean? And why was it being deleted so quickly? Deep in the heart of the Galactic Observation Network, the humans who noticed it first understood something no one else did. The message was not a joke, not a threat, not an accident. It was a signal. Hidden in the words, in the tone, in the fleeting glitch of the transmission. There was a meaning that only humans could feel. Other species, bound by their rigid rules, saw nonsense and erased it. Humans saw a challenge. On the planet Calestis Prime, the alien envoy who had sent the message stood before a holographic star map. Her appearance was flawless, as if sculpted from the finest materials. Her uniform gleamed, but it wasn't just a suit. It was a system of controls, layers of technology designed to hide her true self. Yet, in a single glitch, she had exposed something unexpected. Beneath the uniform, beneath the armor and authority, there was nothing forced upon her. Not flesh, not control systems, just her own will. Her voice was soft as she whispered the line again. Though no human could hear her this time. She was testing the galaxy, testing herself, and testing humanity. Curious if I'm not wearing anything underneath? It was a question of freedom, a question of identity, and she knew that only one species in the galaxy would understand. On Earth, Dr. Alan Rivas stared at the screen in disbelief. He had spent decades studying alien signals, messages, and codes. This was different. It was not a language anyone could translate at first glance. But the pattern of the message, the way the words moved and shimmered for only seconds, hinted at a deeper structure. Someone or something had chosen these words carefully. The challenge was subtle, but clear. Alan's assistant, Lila, leaned over his shoulder, eyes wide. Is it dangerous? She asked. Alan shook his head slowly. No, not dangerous. But it is unusual. Highly unusual. This isn't a threat. This isn't propaganda. It's a test. A test. The word felt strange in Alan's mind. He thought of all the alien civilizations humanity had observed. Most were predictable. Most were careful. They used technology, strategy, and rules to control everything and everyone. But here was someone breaking the rules. Someone daring to show what lay beneath all layers of authority. All layers of control. And humans like Alan and Lila were uniquely suited to see it. The news spread quickly, though authorities tried to suppress it. Social media networks, once sanitized, carried fragments of the message. People debated its meaning endlessly. Philosophers, scientists, and ordinary citizens all speculated. The 9-second window became a global obsession. Meanwhile, across the stars, the envoy was preparing. She was not hiding anymore. The galaxy's surveillance networks were watching her every move. But she did not care. She had a mission. And that mission depended on finding beings who would not be controlled by imposed rules. Humans. Her species, the Seraphine, had been part of a galactic alliance for thousands of years. That alliance demanded order. It demanded control. Every member species had to obey certain invisible rules, implanted into their systems and even their genetics. Freedom was dangerous. Curiosity was dangerous. Humanity, however, had evolved differently. Humans had no artificial restrictions. They were unpredictable, uncontrolled. That unpredictability fascinated her, and it frightened the alliance. Alan and Lila worked through the night. Every fragment of the transmission was analyzed. Every frame, every pixel, every timing anomaly was scrutinized. And the more they studied, the more they realized something extraordinary. This was not a random signal. It was designed to be noticed by humans. Specifically, by no other species. It contained layers of meaning that only a species with curiosity, resilience, and the ability to question authority could understand. In the quiet of the lab, Alan finally leaned back in his chair, exhausted. "It's a message," he said. "Not just words. Someone or something is asking us to notice. Asking us to see what others refuse to see. Asking if we are free." Lila frowned. "Free? What do you mean?" Alan smiled faintly, though he was tired. "Other species hide behind rules. They are controlled by systems designed to keep them in line. But humans, we have no such systems. We are not wearing anything underneath. Not control systems, not layers of obedience, not invisible chains. We are just ourselves. And that makes us unique, dangerous, even to those who rely on control." The envoy's voice echoed in his mind again. Though no human could hear her, Alan felt her meaning clearly. She had asked a question, and humanity had answered, not in words, but in thought. Yes, we are curious. Yes, we are free. Yes, we are human. The next morning, the authorities tried to suppress all reports, yet fragments persisted. Videos, screenshots, and even academic papers began circulating online. The more they tried to erase it, the more people wanted to see it. Humanity had a habit of resisting erasure, of demanding knowledge. And this time, the desire to understand was stronger than fear. By the third day, Alan and Lila were not alone. Across the globe, teams of scientists, engineers, and analysts had begun examining the transmission. Everyone agreed. This was a challenge, a puzzle, a test of human ingenuity and courage. Meanwhile, the envoy prepared to take the next step. The transmission was only the beginning. She had revealed a crack in the Alliance's system. A crack that only humans could exploit. She would guide them, but subtly. She could not interfere too much. They had to see, question, and act on their own. Only then could humanity show its true value. In quiet moments, she thought about the phrase again. Curious if I'm not wearing anything underneath? It was more than a question. It was a truth, stripped of control, stripped of fear, stripped of expectation. She was herself. And for the first time, in the long history of the galaxy, she wondered, could humans really see her as she was? Could they recognize freedom when they saw it? On Earth, Alan's lab was buzzing with energy. Every calculation, every theory, every discussion led to a single conclusion. Humans were ready, ready to act, ready to explore, ready to challenge what the galaxy had long taken for granted. And across the stars, in the silence of space, a single message waited to be answered. A question, simple yet profound, that would test the courage, curiosity, and will of humanity. Are you ready to see what lies beneath? As night fell on Earth, millions of people unknowingly looked at the skies, sensing a presence. Something new was coming. Something that would change the galaxy forever. And in that moment, the whisper, the glitch, the forbidden message, and the human response all converged into a single truth. Humanity had no limits, and that made them unstoppable. The transmission had changed everything. For the first time in human history, the galaxy's attention was on them. Not as soldiers, not as diplomats, not as explorers, but as something far more dangerous. Free beings. Humans, it seemed, were unpredictable. And unpredictability was a threat to civilizations built on control. Dr. Alan Rivas paced his small office at the Earth Space Research Center. Lila sat at the console, scanning the newly intercepted signals coming from deep space. Every moment brought a new puzzle, a new clue about the envoy who had sent the cryptic message. The data was complex, but patterns began to emerge. Her movements, her timing, the glitches in her transmission, they weren't mistakes. They were deliberate. Every detail had meaning. She's not like other aliens we've seen, Alan muttered. She isn't hiding because she's afraid. She's hiding because she wants to test us. Lila leaned back in her chair, rubbing her eyes. Test us? But why? What could she gain from a test? Alan shook his head. It's not about gain. It's about understanding. And not just her understanding. She's trying to understand us. The humans had seen many alien species. Some friendly, others hostile. Yet none had done something so strange, so personal, yet completely safe. The envoy's question, her whisper, was not about her body, her identity, or anything physical. It was about freedom. About the courage to act without rules, and it was something only humans could recognize and respond to. A week later, the envoy appeared almost, not physically, but through a secure holographic connection. The first moment humans saw her projected image in the lab, silence filled the room. She was flawless, beautiful in a way that was almost unnatural, but her aura wasn't threatening. Instead, it carried a quiet strength. Her eyes, deep and sharp, seemed to look directly into the human mind, as if reading thoughts and intentions. "Greetings, humans," she said. Her voice was calm, even melodic, but carried an undercurrent of authority. "I am Kalara. You saw my message." Few did, and even fewer understood it. "You are unique." Alan stepped forward, heart racing. "Kalara, why did you send the transmission?" She paused, her gaze steady. "To test your curiosity, to measure your courage, and to see if your species can perceive freedom when it is not handed to you." Lila frowned. "Freedom? But every species we know has some kind of control system. Laws, rules, technology." Kalara nodded. "Exactly. All of my kind live under layers of control. Not because we are weak, but because our alliance demands it. Genetic restrictions, behavioral programming, authority hierarchies, they govern every choice we make. But you, humans, you have none of this. That is what I wanted to see. That is what I wanted to understand." Alan exchanged a glance with Lila. "So, you're saying we're dangerous?" Kalara tilted her head slightly. "Dangerous to those who depend on control. Dangerous because you can think freely, act freely, and question freely. You are the first species in millennia that might challenge the Alliance itself. And that is why I reached out." The weight of her words sank in. Humanity had often believed itself small in the galaxy. Other civilizations had technology far beyond Earth's, armies that spanned star systems, and minds sharpened by centuries of coordinated effort. Yet, Kalara had revealed a truth. Humans were strong in ways that others could never be. Strength did not only come from machines or soldiers. Strength came from choice, curiosity, and courage. Over the next few days, Kalara shared more of her knowledge. Through the holographic interface, she explained how her people lived under enforced obedience. Commands were implanted in the young. Genes were modified to make rebellion painful, both physically and socially. Technology monitored behavior constantly. Even thoughts could be detected and corrected. Humans listened in disbelief. They had long suspected that other civilizations were more organized, more advanced, but they had never realized the price of that order. Freedom was traded for safety. Curiosity was traded for control. And yet here were humans, unshackled, able to think and act without limitation. Lila whispered to Alan during one of the briefings. "We really are different, aren't we?" Alan nodded, his mind racing. "We are, and that's why she came to us. She knows that only humans could face what the Alliance fears. Only humans could resist control and find their own path." Kalara watched them closely. "There will be those who try to force your species to obey. The Alliance will see your freedom as a threat. You must be ready." Alan frowned. "Force us? What can they do? We're humans. We adapt. We learn. We improvise." Kalara smiled faintly. That is precisely why you are dangerous. You have nothing beneath your will. No implanted restrictions. No hidden obedience. And when others see this, they will fear it. And they will act. The following week, human engineers worked tirelessly, decoding the layers of Kilara's transmission. They discovered that the glitches, the subtle timing shifts, were instructions. She was teaching them how to detect hidden controls, how to see systems of obedience in other species, and how to resist them. Alan couldn't contain his excitement. This is incredible. She's showing us how to spot the chains others wear and how to remove them. And she trusts us to do it on our own. Lila grinned. It's like a test, yes, but also a lesson. And we're learning faster than anyone else could. Meanwhile, Kilara watched from across the galaxy. She had taken a risk by exposing herself, even partially, to humans. But she had seen something rare. Something she had not seen in millennia. Humans were not bound by fear of authority. They did not obey because they must. They obeyed only when it made sense. And that made them not only capable but exceptional. The Alliance noticed her transmissions eventually. Alerts flashed across star systems. Unauthorized communication with humans, one report read. Potential violation of Alliance protocols. But by the time the Alliance tried to act, it was too late. Humans had begun to understand the first principle Kilara wanted them to see. Freedom was not given, it was recognized and protected. On Earth, Alan and Lila continued to work day and night. They simulated interactions with alien systems, practiced resisting automated control measures, and developed new strategies to act in unpredictable situations. Every time they succeeded, the humans felt a growing sense of confidence. They were learning more than survival, they were learning leadership. Kilara knew this growth was essential. The Alliance would test humans. They would try to impose rules, limits, and controls. But humans, unlike other species, could see through them. Humans could adapt, humans could resist, and most importantly, humans could teach others to do the same. It was only a matter of time before the first challenge arrived. But Kilara was not worried. She had chosen wisely. She had chosen a species that could not be constrained. A species that could look beneath power, beneath rules, beneath control, and see the truth. And humanity was ready. The whisper, the glitch, the forbidden message. It had been a simple question, but the meaning was profound. Kilara had asked if she was wearing anything underneath. Humans had answered not in words, but in understanding, action, and readiness. Beneath the surface, humans had nothing imposed upon them. Nothing hidden, nothing artificial. And that made them dangerous, brilliant, and unstoppable. The first wave of alien observers would arrive within weeks, testing humanity, challenging their freedom, and attempting to impose the control systems Kilara had warned them about. But humans were not afraid. They were ready. They had seen the truth. They had learned to recognize control, and they had learned to resist it. Across the galaxy, Kilara's voice echoed in thought, reaching humans in ways they could not yet perceive. Observe, question, act, and above all, remain free. And on Earth, in the quiet of the labs, the first sparks of rebellion, ingenuity, and unparalleled courage began to ignite. Humanity was not just surviving, humanity was beginning to shape the future. The first wave of the Alliance's observers arrived in Earth's orbit quietly, like shadows slipping across the night sky. Their ships were massive, glinting with advanced technology far beyond anything humans had built. Yet they were not there to negotiate, they were there to test, to impose the systems Kilara had warned about. Dr. Alan Rivas stood on the observation deck of the Earth Space Research Center, staring at the fleet with a mixture of awe and determination. Lila stood beside him, her eyes scanning the holographic displays that mapped the alien ship's positions and energy signatures. "They're evaluating us," Alan said quietly. "Not just our technology, but our response. They want to see if humans can be controlled, or if we will resist." Lila nodded. and they don't know what they're in for. Across the galaxy, Kaylara watched through her secure interface. She had warned humanity of this moment. The Alliance would not ignore a species that refused control. They would test, challenge, and perhaps even attack. But humans had something no other species possessed. Nothing beneath their will, no obedience systems, no genetic restrictions, no artificial chains. And that would be their greatest advantage. The alien fleet moved closer, deploying drones that scanned the Earth's surface, gathering data on human society, communication networks, and energy grids. The drones emitted pulses designed to test neural responses, measure obedience, and detect resistance. Most species under such scrutiny would falter. Most species would submit quietly to the invisible pressure. Humans did not. Alan and Lila watched the first drone approach a major city. Its pulse swept across the population, attempting to read neural signals and impose subtle control patterns. But humans reacted unpredictably. People shouted, ran, and even performed random actions that the drones could not predict. Patterns failed. Algorithms failed. The drones, designed to manipulate obedience, recorded failure after failure. "They can't control us," Lila whispered. "They don't understand us at all." Alan's eyes gleamed. "And that's why they'll be frustrated. That's why we have the advantage." Kaylara's projection appeared in the lab, her image steady and calm. "You see it, don't you? Your species cannot be constrained because there is nothing beneath your will. No obedience implants. No hidden commands. No chains. You are free, and in this freedom lies power." The humans prepared carefully. They knew the Alliance would escalate. Soon, the drones began coordinating attacks, not to destroy, but to overwhelm. They created complex scenarios, simulated crises, and attempted to manipulate human decision-making. But humans, faced with uncertainty, adapted faster than any system could calculate. They used improvised strategies, unexpected collaboration, and raw creativity to solve each problem. In one test, a drone attempted to isolate a city by generating an energy field around it, designed to control the movement of people and vehicles. Human engineers scrambled, studying the field's behavior. Within hours, they had designed a simple countermeasure using standard communications satellites, creating interference that neutralized the energy field. The city remained free, and the drones recorded anomaly after anomaly. "It's incredible," Lila said. "They've never seen anything like this." "They can't predict us," Alan nodded. "And they won't. That's the point." Kaylara was right. "They fear us because we have nothing imposed upon us. Nothing to remove. Nothing to control. We act not because we must, but because we choose." The Alliance, frustrated by these failures, deployed their next strategy: psychological manipulation. Holographic projections appeared across major cities, creating illusions of threats and disasters. They attempted to provoke fear, panic, and obedience. But humans, uniquely resilient, did not falter. Communities organized quickly, using common sense, empathy, and leadership to counter the illusions. Volunteers coordinated evacuation plans. Emergency responders worked efficiently, and scientists rapidly debunked the false threats. The Alliance's simulations failed again. Kalara's image appeared once more, her voice calm but firm. "Observe, humans. Your strength is not in technology or numbers. Your strength is in your mind, your will, and your courage. You see the truth beneath the illusion. You act where others would hesitate. That is what makes you exceptional." Across the lab, Alan and Lila felt a surge of pride and determination. They realized that this was more than a test. This was a lesson. Humanity was proving that intelligence, creativity, and moral choice were more powerful than any system of control. The Alliance escalated further. A fleet of ships attempted to blockade Earth, cutting off communications and supply routes. Drones attempted direct interference with satellite systems. The intent was clear: force humanity into submission. But humans were ready. Engineers, scientists, and leaders worked together to turn Earth's existing infrastructure into a defensive network. Satellites were repurposed to track and disrupt drones. Communications networks were rerouted through redundant pathways. Human ingenuity turned the seemingly impossible into practical solutions. Even the citizens played their part. Volunteers monitored power grids, coordinated emergency response, and reported drone activity. Creativity and adaptability flourished in ways the Alliance had never anticipated. Alan watched the sky through the observation deck. They thought they could control us. They thought we would break under pressure. But they didn't count on human choice. They didn't count on our willingness to act. Our strength isn't weapons, it's our mind. Lila nodded. And that makes us unstoppable. Kaylara's voice echoed, almost like a thought in their minds. The Alliance will continue to test you. They will try every method they know. But remember this. You are not like them. You have nothing imposed upon you. And when you recognize control, you can resist it. You can overcome it. You can teach others to do the same. The final challenge came when a fleet of Alliance ships descended into Earth's orbit, attempting to enforce a strict blockade. Their intent was not to destroy, but to isolate, to force humans to submit by cutting off resources and communication. Yet humans responded with ingenuity and cooperation. Using existing spacecraft and communication satellites, they created a counter-network that not only maintained supply chains but also allowed Earth's forces to communicate with allies across the solar system. The blockade, meant to intimidate, became a demonstration of human adaptability and collaboration. Kaylara watched silently, her expression unreadable. Humans had passed the first major test. They had faced the Alliance directly, resisted manipulation, and proven that freedom was not a concept to be taken away. It was a force they wielded naturally. Alan turned to Lila as the fleet slowly began to retreat, unable to achieve its objective. "We did it," he said, hardly believing it himself. "We actually did it." Lila smiled. "We did more than survive. We showed them who we are. We showed them that humans can't be controlled." Kaylara's image faded from the lab, leaving only a soft glow. Her parting words remained in their minds. "You are the first species in millennia that can resist without fear. You are the ones with nothing to remove. Remember this. Never forget it." And humanity did not forget. Across the globe, the story spread of how Earth had resisted the Alliance's first wave. News reports, scientific journals, and personal accounts highlighted the ingenuity, courage, and unity of humans. For the first time, the galaxy recognized Earth not for its technology, but for its mind and will. The Alliance would return. Other challenges would follow. But humanity had learned a critical truth. Freedom was not granted by others. It was recognized and defended by those brave enough to act. And humans, with nothing beneath their will, were more than ready. As night fell across the planet, Alan and Lila looked up at the stars. The alien fleet had gone, for now. But humanity's story was just beginning. The galaxy had seen a species unbound, fearless, and intelligent. And in that moment, one truth became clear. Humanity was no longer just another species. Humanity was a force to be reckoned with, and when the next challenge arrived, they would meet it together, free and unstoppable. The skies above Earth were alive with light as the full fleet of the Alliance arrived. Ships the size of mountains blocked the horizon, casting shadows over oceans and cities alike. Unlike the first wave, this was not a test, it was a show of force, designed to remind humanity that they were small in a vast galaxy. Dr. Alan Rivas stood on the observation deck, heart racing but mind clear. Lila and the rest of the research team were already at their consoles, monitoring every movement, every signal, every pulse of the alien fleet. They knew the stakes. They understood the consequences. But they were not afraid. "This is it," Alan whispered. "This is the moment we show them who we really are." Kaylara appeared, her image steady in the lab. "The Alliance believes control is strength. They do not understand freedom. They do not understand the mind that acts by choice. Today, you will show them the difference." Humanity had prepared. Over weeks, They had studied every system the Alliance might use: drones, energy fields, communication blocks, and even psychological manipulations. They had trained themselves to respond unpredictably, to think creatively, and to cooperate on a scale the aliens could not anticipate. The first attack came in the form of energy pulses, waves designed to disrupt human communication networks. Scientists had already anticipated this. Using a combination of satellites, relays, and simple adaptive coding, humans rerouted signals through independent pathways, maintaining full communication while creating false signals to confuse the alien sensors. The pulses did nothing but bounce back uselessly. Lila turned to Alan, a grin spreading across her face. "They're already failing. They don't know we're ready for them." Alan nodded, eyes fixed on the holographic projection of the fleet. "This is just the beginning. Wait until they see what humans can do when no one is holding them back." Next came the drones, hundreds of thousands of them, swarming across the planet like mechanical insects. Their mission: to isolate populations, manipulate behavior, and enforce obedience. But humans were already waiting. Volunteers across the globe had built simple countermeasures using everyday technology, communications devices, vehicles, and even household electronics repurposed to jam drone signals. The drones faltered. Algorithms failed. Machines designed for precision could not predict human creativity. When one drone attempted to herd a crowd into a trap, local humans improvised a barricade, redirected traffic, and even used mirrors and reflective surfaces to confuse the drone's sensors. The result was chaos for the drones and freedom for the humans. Kaylara watched with quiet pride. "Your species adapts faster than any algorithm. You improvise. You cooperate. You do not hesitate because you are not bound by fear or control. That is why you are exceptional." The Alliance escalated, deploying psychic probes intended to influence human minds directly. These devices were designed to make humans obedient, to implant thoughts and desires that aligned with the Alliance's will. Other species would have succumbed. Other species would have bent silently to the pressure. But humans resisted. Alan and Lila had trained their minds to recognize influence, to analyze it critically, and to act independently. Across the planet, millions of humans unknowingly formed a network of resistance, each one reinforcing the other's choices. The probes failed spectacularly, their signals neutralized by human ingenuity. "This is incredible," Lila said, almost shouting over the comms. "They can't control us, not one of us." Alan smiled. "That's because there is nothing to control. Nothing beneath our will. Nothing to remove. We are free. And that freedom is our power." The alien fleet, frustrated and unable to force submission, attempted a direct blockade of Earth's orbit. Ships moved into formation, creating energy barriers that could cut off supply lines, isolate cities, and block communication with satellites beyond the planet. The Alliance intended to starve humanity into obedience, but humans were ready, using existing spacecraft, satellite arrays, and even modified drones of their own design. They created a counter-network that not only maintained communication, but also disrupted the blockade. Energy fields were neutralized using adaptive frequency shifts. Satellites projected false signals to confuse the alien ships. And on the ground, engineers monitored every system, prepared to act at a moment's notice. The blockade failed. Again, across the galaxy, Kaylara smiled faintly. "Do you see, humans? This is what it means to have nothing beneath your will. Others obey because they must. You act because you choose. That is why you cannot be controlled." But the Alliance was not finished. Their final test was psychological, aimed at the human leaders directly. Holographic projections of catastrophe appeared over cities, showing destruction, despair, and chaos. The images were designed to provoke fear and submission, to force humans to comply for the sake of survival. Yet humans did what they always did. They acted. Volunteers organized rescue efforts. Scientists verified data to identify what was real and what was illusion. Leaders coordinated response teams with speed and precision that the Alliance could not anticipate. Humans did not panic. Humans did not obey because they were told to. Humans acted because they wanted to survive and help others. Alan looked at Lila, eyes shining with pride. They're learning now. They're seeing what we've always known. Humans don't need control to act. We act because we choose. Lila nodded. And that scares them more than anything else. Finally, after hours of failed attempts, the alien fleet began to retreat. Their drones, probes, and ships had all been neutralized or outmaneuvered. The message was clear. Humanity could not be controlled, predicted, or subdued. Their freedom was their strength, their ingenuity was unmatched, and their courage had reshaped the galaxy's perception of what a species could be. Across Earth, news outlets reported the unprecedented events. Scientists, volunteers, and everyday citizens were celebrated for their ingenuity, cooperation, and courage. Humanity had faced the might of the galaxy and emerged victorious not through violence, but through intelligence, creativity, and willpower. Kalara appeared one last time, her holographic form steady and serene. You have done more than survive. You have shown the galaxy a truth long forgotten. Freedom cannot be imposed. It cannot be simulated. It must be recognized and defended by those who are brave enough to act. And humanity, you are the first species in millennia to do so. Alan and Lila exchanged a look, their hearts swelling with pride. They had not only survived, they had reshaped history. They had proven that humans, with nothing beneath their will, were capable of greatness. The Alliance, meanwhile, had learned a lesson it would not forget. They had underestimated humans, dismissed their unpredictability, and failed to recognize the power of choice. Across the galaxy, whispers began spreading. Earth was not just another planet. Earth was a beacon of freedom, ingenuity, and courage. And for the first time in centuries, other species began to question the systems that had bound them. Kalara's test had a ripple effect. Civilizations once obedient out of fear or habit began to examine their own restrictions. If humans could resist, maybe they could too. On Earth, Alan and Lila watched the stars, the alien fleet now retreating beyond the solar system. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge and emerged not just intact, but stronger, wiser, and freer than ever. Kalara's final words echoed in their minds. Observe. Question. Act. And above all, remain free. Freedom, they realized, was not simply the absence of control. It was a force that required courage, intelligence, and unity. And humanity, with nothing to take off, nothing to hide, and nothing imposed upon their will, had demonstrated that force to the entire galaxy. For the first time in history, humans were not just inhabitants of Earth. They were leaders, innovators, and a symbol of what it meant to act with choice and courage. And the galaxy, once so certain of control, had been forced to recognize a new truth. Humans, with nothing beneath their will, were unstoppable. And from that moment on, the stars themselves seemed to shine a little brighter, as if acknowledging the rise of a species that had refused to be constrained and had changed the universe forever.